So my name is Matt Haggman. I am the Miami Program Director at Knight Foundation, and I participated in the Project Interchange delegation focused on entrepreneurship in the spring of this year. So do you want to talk a little bit about how it all...
Yeah, maybe your...
So yeah, I mean, the idea of doing an entrepreneur-focused delegation actually started with a conversation with Brian Siegel, where there was no expectation that this was where this conversation was going to end up. Brian, who's a dear friend, and I were just visiting, and I was sharing the work we're doing at Knight Foundation on entrepreneurship, and Brian was talking about Project Interchange and these awesome trips they've been doing for years and years, where take a group, for a week to Israel or thereabouts to Israel to get immersed in the country, in civil society, in the culture, in the history, in sort of this entire sort of understanding of Israel. And as we're talking about, and in fact, our CEO at Knight Foundation, Alberto Barguin, actually went, when he was publisher of the Miami Herald, went on a Project Interchange mission to Israel. And so as Brian and I were talking about it, I said to Brian, gosh, do you do trips focused specifically on entrepreneurship? I mean, after all, Israel, there's the book Startup Nation, Israel. Other than Silicon Valley, this is the primary center of innovation really in the world. In fact, true story, I was at a conference recently and asked Eric Schmidt of Google, after Silicon Valley, what do you consider the best startup communities in the world? Tel Aviv was the first he mentioned. So with that in mind, Brian, what about taking a group to Israel, focused on entrepreneurship and learning about the startup community there? And to Brian's great credit, he immediately said, "Let's do it." And I'm so grateful to him for having the courage and the willingness to try something really completely new. And so he and Project Interchange went about putting together an itinerary focused exclusively on the startup and entrepreneurial community in Israel. And with that, we put together, Brian and I, a group of 10 people, leaders in the startup community in Miami. And off we went to learn, to connect, to share. And certainly after a week there, I think we all came back a little different.
So, what were some of your major takeaways from
Yeah, I mean, some of the major, there's so much learning during the entire week. But some of the takeaways, number one, everyone talked about the ecosystem and understanding that to build a real center of innovation and high impact entrepreneurship, it relies on building lots of different component parts, but parts that are then sort of connected to others in different ways, and allows for sort of a menu of things, whether it's mentorship, access to funding, events of different kind, learning opportunities, that are available to the entrepreneur as sort of as needed for them. And so we heard again and again, people would talk about the ecosystem. And people thinking about it as a public good and something that everyone needed to look after and to help build and help grow. In addition, one of the things I was really struck by, actually, there are many takeaways, but one that always stuck with me was we were at a panel discussion one evening, and an Arab-Israeli entrepreneur, female entrepreneur from Nazareth, talked about diversity being sort of one of the keys to building a strong entrepreneurial environment, and actually also talking about entrepreneurship as a way, as she talked about it, to thaw the ice and to create connections that otherwise may not be there. And that really struck with me. And I know since coming back, I've talked in a sort of a much clearer and intentional way about that here in Miami, because our diversity is really our greatest asset. And as we work to build the startup and entrepreneurial community here in Miami, our diversity really is a differentiator, a competitive advantage we must always focus on and leverage. Another thing that really came true or that came across is that playing the long game, right? I mean, Israel's been at this for a long time, and understanding that you can make strides quickly, but understand that we must continue to work on it year after year after year. We were struck by the fact that Technion, which in the 1920s, was founded, and of course Technion is one of the anchors, perhaps the anchor alongside the military in sort of as a foundation in Israel's amazing innovation ecosystem. But that's, we're going back to the 20s with that, and so this is something that's been worked at for a long, long time. And as we work here in Miami, it's being mindful of the fact that it doesn't happen overnight. We can make change quickly, but it's something to work on again and again and again for years and years.